From insane twists and turns through mountainous passes to unpredictable weather and unstable terrain, for today's video, we're counting down the top 15 scariest highways in the world. Starting with number 15, Babbert D915 in Turkey. The Babbert D915 is a historic highway that stretches across northeastern Turkey, and it's famous for its incredible views and challenging terrain. The road connects the city of Babbert with the other towns and cities in the region, and to do so, it winds its way through the rugged terrain of the eastern Anatolian region, crossing steep mountain passes and traversing deep valleys. The road's twists and turns take you through stunning panoramic views of the surrounding mountains, including the Pontic Mountains, which are often covered in snow during the winter months. But for long stretches, you'll be on edge because there are very few safety barriers and huge drops just to the side of the road. Probably the most nerve-wracking part is the Zojila Pass, which reaches an elevation of over 6,500 feet or 2,000 meters above sea level. Just reaching this part of the road is a challenge in itself, but once you enter the pass, it's a whole different level with tricky curves and inclines. It's well worth it though if you're brave enough, because the adventure along the Babbert D915 highway is unlike any other. The route takes you through charming villages, historic sites, and cultural landmarks that, with the starting point, Babbert itself is known for amazing Ottoman-era architecture, including old houses, mosques, and bridges. You should, though, be an experienced and confident driver to tackle the D915 because even though it's just 65 miles or about 106 kilometers long, there are only occasional stretches of asphalt, with the rest being loose gravel. Near misses here are a daily occurrence on the road, and you'll need nerves of steel to make it to the end unscathed. Number 14, the Tooco Gorge Road in Taiwan. Now, this road is also known as the Zhongbu Cross Island Highway, is a crazy road on the east coast of Taiwan that runs along a 73-mile or 118-kilometer route of mainly mountainous terrain. It was built by carving directly into the rock, so you can expect loose overhangs, twists, and turns, but it's also one of the best ways to see the natural landscape on the island. The road runs through the Tooco National Park, which was established in 1986 to protect the unique geology, biodiversity, and cultural heritage of the area, and then into the Tooco Gorge itself, where you'll see how the Liwu River has carved its way through the rugged marble terrain over millions of years. The result is a stunning chasm that reaches depths of up to 3,000 feet or over 900 meters and features sheer cliffs that seem to touch the sky. One part that stands out is the Tunnel of 9 Turns, which is a winding section of the highway that offers views of the gorge and the Liwu River. The road is named for a series of dramatic turns carved into the rock face, but remember that while you're avoiding a collision with the rock face, the other side of the road leads to a near vertical drop into the gorge below. It is an amazing engineering triumph that the road even exists, but if it's not scary enough, you'll also have to contend with the local drivers, particularly a large number of buses that travel along it. With so many vehicles contending for the narrow road, you'll inevitably find yourself reversing past cliff edges and single-lane tunnels to reach the next safe point to pass. It is a trip well worth doing, if you're a confident driver though. That's because it'll take you past a number of cultural and historical sites, including the Eternal Spring Shrine, which was built to honor the workers who built the highway, and it's set against a backdrop of cascading waterfalls. Number 13, the 3-level zigzag road in India. Now, normally designers try to minimize the number of hairpin turns in a road, and it's rare to come across 2 or 3 in a stretch. But there's a place in India where, because of the layout of the land, there was no way to avoid it. Frighteningly, the 3-level zigzag road, which is in the state of Sikkim in eastern Himalayas, has more than 100 tight hairpin bends in a distance of just 18 miles, or about 30 kilometers. It's also known as the Zuluk Loop. It was originally built as part of the historic Silk Route that connected Tibet with India and served as a critical trade route for centuries. Today, it's a popular destination for tourists looking to explore the rugged landscapes of the Himalayas. The 3-level zigzag road gets its name from its unforgiving layout. The road is carved into the steep terrain and winds its way through dense forests, pristine meadows, and remote villages, gradually climbing to higher altitudes before reaching its peak at the Tambi viewpoint, which is at an altitude of 11,200 feet or 3,400 meters. Said to be the most dizzying road in the world, it offers a magical view of the sunset over the Himalayan peaks, including Kanchenjunga, which is the 3rd highest mountain in the world. And during the winter, when it's snowing, the landscape and the road become even more special. Still, not everyone's even allowed to attempt this drive because of the dangers, and you require a special permit to even access it. To get this, you need to have been driving for several years, have a four-wheel drive vehicle that's considered suited to the conditions, and have an emergency kit in the trunk just in case you need to winch yourself out of one of the many ditches. Number 12. The Kwasi Canyon Road in Peru. While the Grand Canyon may well be the most famous, the Kwasi Canyon in Peru is the deepest in the Americas, plunging 11,004 feet, or 3,354 meters below the surrounding ground level. It separates the Solimana and the Copuna mountain ranges and was formed by the Cotahuasi River, creating an incredible landscape that, unsurprisingly, attracts countless visitors who want to see it. In order to cater to them and the locals who need to transport themselves and goods between the mountain villages, a road was constructed alongside the canyon. But it's unlike any road you'll ever have driven on before. It was only built within the past 25 years and is unpaved and features a grueling series of narrow passages, steep gradients, and hairpin turns that could make it easily one of the most demanding drives in the world. Running from Cotahuasi to Quechala, it's only 21.7 miles or 35 kilometers long, but every single inch of it is scary, and it's certainly not for the faint of heart. Narrow and dusty during the dry season, or endlessly and muddy and mosquito-ridden during the wet season, it is, though, a rewarding drive if you can take it on. You'll be treated to breathtaking views of the canyon's sheer walls, terraced agricultural fields, and the rushing waters of the Cotahuasi River far below, and pass through remote villages with the opportunities to meet the indigenous Quechua-speaking communities that call this place home. And, of course, it's strictly 4x4 vehicles only to ensure you'll be able to take on all the challenges that you encounter, but you'll also get access to a number of ancient Inca and pre-Inca ruins scattered throughout the region. These archaeological sites offer unparalleled glimpses into the history and culture of the people who have inhabited the canyon for centuries, with the Maucalacta with its well-preserved stone structures being particularly impressive. You'll also pass Lake Hualhuacucha and the Sipa waterfall, which is one of the highest waterfalls in Peru, and you'll see endless wildlife, including possibly Andean condors soaring overhead. You will, though, want to keep your eye on the road, because with these sharp cliff edges and continuous obstacles, one wrong move and you'll be stuck with no help for miles around. Number 11. The James Dalton Highway in Alaska, the United States. The James Dalton Highway, known simply as the Dalton Highway, is one of the most famous, challenging roads in the world that stretches through the remote wilderness of Alaska in the United States. As one of the most isolated and northernmost routes in North America, those who dare driving along it will pass through some of the most pristine and rugged landscapes on the continent. Named after James William Dalton, an Alaskan engineer and pioneer, the highway was constructed as a supply route for the Trans-Alaska Pipeline system in the 1970s. It covers a distance of about 414 miles, or about 660 kilometers, and connects the cities of Fairbanks in central Alaska to Deadhorse near the Arctic Ocean. The road crosses through the Brooks Range, the northernmost mountain range in North America, and passes a range of landscapes like tundra, forests, and vast expanses of wilderness. The Dalton Highway is also known for its tricky conditions, with gravel sections, frost heaves, and extreme weather that makes it a daunting journey for even the most experienced of travelers. To make it even scarier, it's mostly unpaved, and services such as gas stations, restaurants, and accommodations are sparse, making it vital that you're well prepared and self-sufficient before setting off. Once you do, though, you can look forward to seeing the Brooks Range with incredible views of the mountains, and you'll also cross the Yukon River and pass through the Arctic Circle. Adding an extra level of unpredictability is the variety of wildlife such as moose, caribou, wolves, and the occasional grizzly bear. It is undoubtedly an adventurer's dream, with opportunities for camping, hiking, and exploration, but one where if things go wrong, there will be very little assistance available, so you'll be on your own. Number 10. The Sichuan to Tibet Highway in China. The Sichuan to Tibet National Highway is the main route that connects Chengdu, the capital of the Sichuan province, to Lhasa, the capital of the Tibet Autonomous Region in China. Now, despite being such a crucial connection, it has to cross some extremely tricky terrain and is at times scary, but also exciting and stunning in equal measures. The highway is around 1,300 miles, or about 2,100 kilometers long, and it's a critical lifeline for the people of Tibet as it serves a major transport route for goods and supplies to the region. It winds its way through the eastern Himalayas, crossing numerous mountain passes and plateaus, and reaches elevations exceeding 16,000 feet, or over 5,000 meters above sea level. In total, the road crosses 14 different mountains, reaching the highest point at the Zojila Pass, which is 16,446 feet, or over 5,000 meters above sea level. But that's just the start of the challenge for this road. From the Zojila Mountain, there are 99 switchback turns in just a 24-mile stretch. Furthermore, the road is prone to regular rock slides, flooding, and being covered in ice. And this is such a serious issue that there are parts where the army stands guard 24 hours a day to close and clear the road as quickly as possible. With long stretches without asphalt and at least a third of the road only being wide enough for one vehicle at a time, it's the wrecks of cars along the route that really show you how easy it is to make a mistake. People too pose a threat here, with regular fights and arguments seen between drivers. And with it taking on average 15 days to complete the distance, it is an endurance challenge too. Number 9. The Cotopaxi Volcano Road in Ecuador. First built in 1971, the Refugio Jose Rivas is a refuge hut that's at an elevation of 15,200 feet, or about 4,600 meters, and is on the border between the Pichincha and Cotopaxi provinces of Ecuador. The only way to access the place is via a dedicated road that winds its way up through the Andes Mountains to get there, and even though it's just about 5 miles, it's a hair-raising experience. That's because it goes up the side of Cotopaxi Volcano, which is the second highest volcano in the country and one of the most active. It's erupted more than 50 times since 1738 and holds the record for being the highest active volcano on the planet. With the constant possibility of being caught up in a volcanic event as you're going up the mountain road, you'll be at heights that altitude sickness becomes a very real problem too. This is almost guaranteed to make you think fuzzier and react slower to events on the road, which can be a real problem with the challenge it presents. None of the route is covered with asphalt, and the gravel surface is extremely bumpy after decades of erosion by rainstorms. It's notoriously either an extremely dusty surface or covered in a thick layer of mud, and you can find yourself in the middle of a violent thunderstorm and strong winds with very little warning. It's these conditions that mean you shouldn't even attempt to drive the road unless you have a four-wheel drive vehicle with high ground clearance, and even then it'll be a struggle. At points, the gradients reach 14%, and at this altitude, the engine's efficiency will be much lower, meaning you won't have as much acceleration or power as you would at sea level. Number 8. The Zojila Pass in India. Zojila is a mountain pass that connects India's Kashmir Valley on the western side to the Suru and Indus valleys to the east, and to do so, you have to cross the western section of the Himalayas. It reaches a maximum height of over 11,000 feet, or about 3,500 meters, and because of conditions in the region, its name translates to mean Mountain Pass of Blizzards. For most of its length, about 119 miles or 193 kilometers, it's a single lane, and very little of it is paved, which means it's often frozen or extremely muddy. Now, if that wasn't enough to deal with, traffic is often held up by flocks of animals that walk into the pass, and when this happens, it can lead to extreme delays of several hours or more. And add to this the risk of landslides, heavy snowfall, and extreme weather, and it becomes clear why this is seen as such a scary route to take, and one you need to be absolutely prepared for. As the conditions have the potential to become so bad on the pass at such an altitude, it's closed for most of the year to prevent unnecessary problems. But even when it's open, it's still quite easy to make a mistake, and you'll find yourself stranded until another vehicle passes by to help you out. Despite these difficulties though, Zojila is a lifeline for the people of Ladakh, as it provides the only road connection to the rest of India. The pass has historically been of strategic importance too, and it's witnessed significant military actions during conflicts in the region, and today it serves as a critical supply route for goods and transportation. For a road that's closed for 6 months a year and takes further 2 months to clear of ice and snow, it isn't the most reliable or safest of transport routes, so the Indian government has authorized a huge infrastructure project to provide an alternative. Known as the Zojila Tunnel, it will be 8.5 miles or 14 kilometers and will reduce travel times to cross the mountain from 3 hours to just 15 minutes. It is a massive undertaking though, and once completed at an estimated cost of $1 billion, it'll become the longest two-way tunnel in all of Asia. Moving on to number 7, the Iron Mountain Road in South Dakota in the United States. Iron Mountain Road, which is in the Black Hills of South Dakota, is an incredible 17-mile or 27-kilometer long scenic drive that'll take you past some of the most picturesque landscapes in the American Midwest. Along the route there are 314 curves, 14 switchbacks, 3 tunnels, and 3 pigtails, which are where the road takes a 360-degree turn by curving around tightly and rising up above itself, and they're definitely not ideal for anyone with motion sickness. First built in 1933, what's unique about this mountain road are the views you'll get of Mount Rushmore, and it's almost like the presidents are looking down as you emerge from the tunnels. It's fully paved, but there's no maintenance during the winter months, so it's closed then. But even during the rest of the year, the climate changes so much that it's said that no 2 trips along the road are ever the same. Even though it's advertised as a scenic route and it's suitable for all drivers, there's still some pretty nerve-wracking moments and turns, and the speed is strictly limited to 35 miles an hour to ensure you have plenty of time to react. It's part of the wider Peter Norbeck Scenic Byway, which is a designated national scenic byway that winds through the Black Hills, and along the entire route you can expect to encounter a wide range of wildlife, including bison, deer, and pronghorn, and you'll be able to explore the rich history too. The road offers access to several other attractions in the Black Hills, including Custer State Park, known for its wildlife and outdoor activities, and the Crazy Horse Memorial, which is a massive ongoing mountain carving that honors Native American culture and history. Number 6. The Naga Parbat Pass in Pakistan. The Naga Parbat Pass, which is more commonly known as the Fairy Meadows Road, which is a much better name, is a mountain route in Pakistan that leads to one of the most enchanting and picturesque places in the country. Hidden away in the heart of the Himalayas, Fairy Meadows is a high-altitude meadow that's surrounded by towering peaks of the mountain range, including the magnificent Nanga Parbat, which is the 9th highest mountain in the world. While it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience to see the Fairy Meadow for yourself, the journey to get there is equally as memorable, and you'll be holding on tight the whole way. The road to Fairy Meadows begins in the town of Raikat, which is in the Gilgit-Baltistan region. It branches off from the Karakoram Highway, and from there you take on a winding, narrow, and steep jeep track that ascends into the mountains, with countless hairpin turns, unforgiving rough terrain, and a precipitous drop. It's an almost 10-mile or 16-kilometer journey along a road that's never been paved or maintained, with its unevenness and complete lack of safety barriers, along with the width being narrower than a single SUV, only adding to the fear factor. The road eventually reaches its highest point at the Tato village, at which point you can take a deep breath, and then decide whether to continue on foot or by jeep. From Tato, it's a trek of around 1.5 to 2 hours to get to Fairy Meadows, but you can also cover the distance by jeep along an equally as scary road. It is more than worth it though, because Fairy Meadows is a lush alpine meadow that comes alive with vibrant wildflowers during the summer months. The area is named for its enchanting beauty and its fairy tale setting. At night, it is really special, providing a spectacular vantage point for stargazing, with the clear mountain skies revealing a night sky unlike anything you'll see anywhere else on Earth. Number 5. Rodovia da Morte, Brazil. The Rodovia da Morte, which translates to mean the Highway of Death, is a notorious road in Brazil. Officially known as BR-116, this highway stretches from Fortaleza in northeastern state of Ceará to Jaguaro in the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul, and covers a distance of around 2,800 miles or about 4,600 kilometers. Now, this makes it one of the longest and continuous highways in Brazil, and while it doesn't look so bad at first, it's more than earned its nickname due to its history of accidents, banditry, and challenging conditions. BR-116's got sharp curves, steep gradients, and frequent landslides, particularly in the mountainous regions of southern Brazil. This terrain, coupled with poor road conditions and inadequate maintenance, has led to a number of incidents over the years, and they tend to happen in remote locations. It takes a very long time for help to come if there is one. The highway, though, passes through a variety of landscapes, including the Amazon rainforest, arid plains, dense forests, and coastal areas. And while this gives you lots to look at as you drive along, it also means the challenging terrain and weather conditions can make driving on this road wildly unpredictable. Unfortunately, to add to the risks of BR-116, it's also become a hotspot for banditry and crime, particularly in the more remote and less police stretches of the highway. Travelers have reported incidents of robbery and violence, making it essential for those journeying along this route to exercise caution and be vigilant, and only to stop if there's no choice. Even though it can be truly frightening at times, BR-116 is a major artery for transport between the country's northern and southern regions, and with a booming tourism industry, significant efforts have been made to improve the safety conditions of BR-116, including infrastructure upgrades and increased law enforcement presence in certain areas. Number 4. The Skipper's Canyon Road in New Zealand. Found close to Queenstown on New Zealand's South Island, Skipper's Canyon Road is a challenging mountain pass that winds its way through the rugged landscapes of the Southern Alps. It's known for its dramatic cliffs, narrow tracks, and incredible views. It's another terrifying road that in recent times has become more popular with tourists looking for a thrill than locals who have much easier alternatives. It was originally carved out during the 1860s during the region's gold rush era when miners flocked to the surrounding rivers in search of their fortunes. The road was essential for transporting supplies and equipments to the gold fields, but its construction was a tough task considering the challenging terrain and conditions. The tracks were made at first by the horses that the miners rode through the area, but eventually there was sufficient demand for a proper road to be built, with many of the original elements still present today. Quite whether this was ultimately worth it is unclear, as it's anecdotally said that the road and its maintenance, because of the soft soil, cost more than the total amount of gold that was recovered. While this probably isn't true, it shows just how much of an effort the route was, and even the question of whether cars should be allowed to use it split the community well into the 1900s. Today, it's a 14-mile or 22-kilometer route that absolutely can be used by cars and curves alongside the Shotover River. Famous for its narrow, steep, and winding sections, as well as its numerous blind corners and sheer cliffsides that plunge into the river below, it is mainly accessible by tour guides and experienced drivers in four-wheel drive vehicles. It's now first and foremost a tourist route that, along with activities on the rivers like jet boat rides, is one of the most must-see sights for people staying in Queenstown. Without any guardrails, you'll be on the edge of your seat the entire way, and things only get more nervy once you reach Skipper's Bridge, which is a huge suspension bridge that spans Skipper's Canyon. Built in 1901 to provide access to the canyon, it was used for transporting gold ore and supplies during the gold rush era. It now stands as an artifact of the time, and it offers a stunning vantage point for those who dare to cross it. Number 3. The Stelvio Pass in Italy. Probably the most famous mountain road in the world, the Stelvio Pass, which is located in the Italian Alps, is renowned for its hairpin turns, challenging terrain, and stunning landscapes that attract drivers from across the world who want to take on the challenge for themselves. At an elevation of over 9,000 feet or about 2,700 meters above sea level, this is the highest paved mountain pass in the Eastern Alps, and it's within the Stelvio National Park, which is a protected area that boasts a diverse range of wildlife and plant species, including marmots, ibexes, and vast carpets of wildflowers. The road to the summit of the pass is simply insane, with a total of 48 hairpin turns on the northern side and 36 on the southern side. The winding and narrow road is a test for even the most skilled drivers, who have to concentrate on the road while being continuously distracted by the awe-inspiring views along the way that are full of snow-capped peaks, glacier-fed rivers, and lush alpine meadows. The landscape's ever-changing beauty provides a feast for the eyes, and it's a photographer's dream, and if anything, you'll probably want to go on the road twice, once as a driver and once as a passenger, just so you can take in the full majesty. Things take an even crazier turn during the winter when the road is liable to be covered in snow, which takes the adrenaline rush to the next level. Of course, it wasn't simply built for fun, and the series of twists and turns was the most efficient way to build a road up the steep slope, so it could be used by military forces during the First World War, and fortifications from then can still be seen by the roadside today. It's not so strategically important now, though, as its busiest time is during the Giro d'Italia cycling race, where it's one of the most popular stages and sees cyclists take on these hairpin turns at breakneck speed. Number 2. The Kola Highway in Russia. Kola Highway, also worryingly known as the Road of Bones, is a remote and challenging road that covers the vast wilderness of Russia's Far East. The highway stretches for a distance of around 1,200 miles, or about 2,000 kilometers, through the Siberian wilderness, and it connects the city of Magadan with the town of Yakutsk. It's notorious for its treacherous conditions and its climate, and poses a real danger to anyone who isn't fully prepared. Construction of the highway began in the 1930s during the Stalin era as part of a forced labor project. The work was carried out by prisoners who suffered through terrible conditions to complete it, but has since become a vital transport route. The highway crosses the Kolyma River and traverses vast, desolate landscapes covered with dense forest, permafrost, and tundra. The climate across the region is among the coldest in the world, with temperatures plummeting well below freezing for much of the year, and it's winter driving on this highway that can be particularly frightening and difficult, with ice-covered roads and blizzard conditions posing huge risks. Cars often get stuck in snowdrifts or become frozen in place if they've been stationary for too long, and it's not exactly the type of road you want to drive unless you really have to. For the remote communities in the Far East, though, it's the only permanent connection with the rest of the world, and it provides access to essential supplies, transportation for residents, and allows an extraction and sale of valuable natural resources from the region, including gold and minerals. It is undoubtedly a stunning road, too, traveling through vast, untouched wilderness, and you even have the chance of spotting wildlife like Siberian tigers, moose, wolves, and various birds. Number 1. The North Jungus Road in Bolivia. The North Jungus Road in Bolivia, which has also become known as the Death Road, is probably the most notorious and legendary of all the dangerous roads in the world. It's located in Bolivia. It connects the city of La Paz with the town of Coroico in the Jungus region. And while doing this, it covers endless, unforgiving landscape where one wrong move can spell trouble. Famous for its steep descents, narrow passages, and hairpin turns that snake through the Andes Mountains, the road is only about 10 feet or 3.2 meters wide in most places, with solid cliff faces to one side and huge drops up to 1,900 feet without guardrails to the other. Adding to the challenge is the unpredictable weather, which can range from dense fog and heavy rain to landslides and washouts, making visibility and road conditions constantly changing and potentially wildly different from one minute to the next. It was originally built in the 1930s and became one of the few routes that linked La Paz with the Amazon jungle to the north. And it was an immediate boost to the lives for the locals amongst the 23-mile stretch. It isn't paved at all, and for a long time it was the quickest and only way to reach various villages. And then, more recently, became popular with adventure travelers and tourists too. The government eventually decided that a safer and simpler route was needed, and by bypassing some of the more treacherous parts of the North Jungus Road and being completely paved with bridges and guardrails, it was opened in 2006 and handles the day-to-day and commercial traffic. The North Jungus Road, though, is still regarded as a major draw and attracts around 25,000 people a year, mostly cyclists who want to take on the challenge and face the fear of the most dangerous road on Earth for themselves. I will see you guys next time. Thank you to our channel members.